Hello, everybody. It's 3:45 a.m. Central Time on the 17th of February, 2025. It's Monday morning here in the USA, and I've got a short update I'm going to be doing for everybody. Got a lot of messages from people asking me about the significant earthquake that struck down in Texas, also the four that struck over on the West Coast, over in California in the Valley, and then people asking me about the six that struck down here at Dauphin volcano inside of the Fentale crater just south of Dauphin. Also, people asking me about Santorini, what's going on in Greece. So we've got a little bit to talk about. We'll talk about this first over here in Texas, since that's the biggest earthquake in many months for the Intermountain states overall. And it's right down here at the Texas-New Mexico border. Let's go ahead and turn on a display capture just so you can see what I'm looking at ever so slightly better. And we'll bring it in here full screen. There we go. So let's get the information on the five. This is coming from the USGS. They have it listed as Toya, Texas. It is the biggest earthquake in many months for the area and really for the whole intermountain region of the US, all the way from the border of Canada all the way down to Mexico. Haven't seen anything this big in a little bit. So what's at the location is more important. I think we should just show you what's at each spot, and then you can kind of draw your own conclusions. I'll, of course, tie it all together in this update as we go along. So first of all, here's Texas. As you guys may know the area, West Texas and New Mexico is right here up to the north. Here's the border. Now, as we zoom in, you're going to see a bunch of little square marks on the ground, all these little white dots. Okay, and all of these white dots are really square pads that are on the ground, and each one is a different oil or gas well. And for instance, this one out here, it looks like they got a whole pipeline going on out there and trucks. And then they have ponds where they collect water. And the water is collected and then put down into the ground in what's called wastewater disposal. They'll take the fresh water and mix it with chemicals and put it down into the ground to break apart the fresh uh, parts in the drill points. The shale breaks apart when they inject the water mixed with chemicals, and then more gas and oil comes out. It's a process called fracking, wastewater disposal fracking. They're also doing regular oil through here, but look at how much there is. All of these are different drill points, every single one of these. These aren't houses. So just go on and on and on, and we get into a lot of them. Now, I'm not against oil and gas at all. The earthquake would have struck here naturally, as we see in the past, that it would go down to one of these volcanic fields and strike to the south at one of the volcanic fields, where the wave would come in and go down around the bend of the craton, down through Texas, and go back up through Dallas this way. This is the edge of the North American craton here. That looks like a river over to the east. That's actually a 1,000-foot bulge. We rise 1,000 feet from like right here to right here, all the way across the edge of the craton as it goes back up to the north, back up into New Mexico, and it makes a bend to the south. And the seismic wave comes down and goes over to the east. And, again, I've shown that craton graphic 1,000 times or more. I might even have it here on the screen. I don't even know if I can open it up. There, we've got it here on the screen here right now. I put this out 14 years ago. And there it is. That's the observed direction that it goes down through Texas, if you're familiar with the craton diagram. And that's exactly what's going on here. Is the seismic wave has gone down through Texas. We go over to the east. We go to this 3.0 over at Falls City, Texas. It's just more of the same. We're on the edge of the craton, and we're at a series of drill points that have further weakened the area, or really, I shouldn't say weakened, but it allows for the seismic wave to come up along these drill points. And like I said, it would have normally come up at the volcano. So, I mean, is it any better or any worse? I don't think it's any worse. Probably rather have it come up at one of these spots than at the volcanic field. Less potential of an eruption, for instance. Okay, so over here, we have a 5. Going around here, we have a 3. Now we go back up to the north and we follow the mountain range, the Intercontinental Divide, and we go right here. We go up to the Colorado, New Mexico border, I think, is where we're going to go next. Let's just make sure. Yeah, there we go. So we got one lone earthquake back up here up on the north side. Let's go look that up. Weston, Colorado. This is right next to Trinidad, Colorado, in southern Colorado. But I kind of already know what's nearby. I just want to go see how close we are. This matters. in light of what I just showed you at the other two spots. So zooming in, here we go. All right, we're on the Colorado side of the border, and you're going to see what looks like a bunch of forestry clear cuts here, but these are not forestry clear cuts. They are just like what I was showing you down in Texas, oil and gas pumping operations. And in this case, the Colorado side of the border, they have new state regulations that require the building of sheds and buildings around each pump or well. And so you're going to see a lot of that, but some of them still aren't covered yet. So you still have your pond and your tank and your pump and your jack outside. Right, let me zoom in and get that oil well right there. There we go. There's the shadow of the jack of the pumps of the oil wells. So we got oil and gas going on there, and then you see how many different drill points there are. Every single one of these white specks on the ground, again, is just like down in Texas. This is Colorado now. So all of this right here is drilled. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that. When I tell you it's all drilled, all the mountaintop peaks are all like this. I'm not against oil and gas. Again, I just have to show you that the drill points are along the edge of the craton, and the wave is going to the weakest point. And it would have sought out the nearby volcanic field. I stand by it. Mother Nature used to do this in the past, and it would get to a break point, and instead of getting to those break points, it's getting to the drill points. And that's, to me, a better thing. Is it a way of volcanic mitigation? I don't know. That's getting too much. Okay, we're not going to go there. So those three sets of earthquakes I just showed you, 3, a 5, and another 2 point whatever up in Colorado, all at drill points going along the edge of the craton. So the other significant earthquakes of the past 2 days are out west, and you can see them. We got a 4.2, a 3.5, a 3.5, and a 3.5. It's basically all the same-sized earthquakes across California, with the biggest one in the middle, right on the creeping section, next to the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault. We'll zoom in and just show it to you there, right smack in the middle of all our 3.5s. And again, I'm showing you 3.0 and greater, 2.9 and greater. So you really do get to see we have an equidistant spacing of a 3.6 to 3.7 on the north side, a 3.5 in the middle, 3.5 to 3.7 to the south, and a 3.5 to the south all the way at Southern California. So it's an equidistant spacing of mid-range threes with a 4.2 in the middle. Where is the 4.2 striking, the bigger of the bunch? I showed this just a day ago, but I'll show it again. This matters in light of what I showed you over in Texas and in Colorado. But we're going to California now. So zooming in, here we are in the Valley of California, Avenal, California. And just zooming in right here, we're going to see more of what I just showed you in Texas. So you see these roads, we can follow the roads and they take us back to nothing more than oil and gas wells placed out here in the back country. And they connect over to pipelines that take the oil and gas out. And this right here, there's maybe, 20 or 30 wells here at the most at this spot here. Here's our nearest well is right next to the earthquake epicenter. And it looks like they do have an apparatus and a pipeline and some tanks coming out. Pipeline looks like it goes down the road this way. But that's low. The number of drill points there is low in comparison to what's right across the farm valley, if you want to call it that, over at Coalinga. All of these are drill points as well for oil and gas. They look like ants on the ground. There's so many, right? It just goes on. It's not a well storage yard, guys. Those are all oil wells, and it goes up to the north. This is California. And right here is the San Andreas. This diagonal line going northwest and southeast, this is all the San Andreas. So we get a 4.2 in the middle here, and then we get going down to the south, 3.5, 3.5, going up to the north, 3.5, 3.5. What does it mean? It means the whole area moved on basically a mid-range 3 level, with the biggest of the bunch in the middle being a 4. That's regular. That's normal. We see this happen regularly as the seismic wave comes in, goes down, and goes over to the east. We can trace it all back to up here, where, going back to last week, we had our activity out off the coast, right at the start of the week. And it all adds up. It's all about the same size, going from off the coast, off west coast, down south, and over east. We're all within 1 magnitude of each other so far. So that's what's going on in the United States. Our drill points are getting hit as the seismic wave is going across the plate. And we're looking for this to go over to the east coast and go up the east coast. So we should see something like a mid-range 3 to a 4 strike over in the east coast in between our current sets of earthquakes. But it's been dramatically quiet over on the east coast. Now, somewhere else where it was dramatically quiet, I say dramatically because it was previously going gangbusters, was over here at Dauphin volcano in Ethiopia, and it had gone quiet. It was suddenly, it was just no seismic activity at all. It went from everything to nothing. The mountains were steaming, the ground was splitting open. There was literally fumarolic activity shooting out of the ground, greater than geysers. It was shooting chunks of earth out of the ground, not like a mud volcano. I mean, it was shooting out gases that were taking rocks with it. The mountains started steaming, and then the seismic stopped, and then the volcanic report stopped. Then, all of a sudden, a new six just pops off at the same location. But when I say same location, it was at previously we were at Dauphin volcano, but now the new six, it's in an entirely different spot, guys. It's about 20 miles south of Dauphin, in the middle of a crater called Fentale. So let's go look it up. And this matters because to get a sudden six at the spot, look, again, we're going right down in, here's Fentale. When I say in the middle of the crater, the Europeans have it right here in the middle of the crater. USGS has it on the side of the crater. Okay. But here it is. Here's Fentale now. And why does this matter? Well, previously we were all the way up here. Here's Dauphin. And then further up to the north at Hertale, this whole stretch had all the seismic going on. Then the mountain started steaming. Then the middle broke open and all the stuff started shooting out of the ground. No lava, though, just gases. Then it went quiet. Suddenly, this comes back right at the crater at Fentale. Now, craters are formed usually by collapsing after some kind of magmatic release. Craters like this, I mean. Then we have other things nearby that show us that there's past blast craters that exist here as well that are huge, and they go on and on and on for many miles down to the south, hundreds of miles to the south. We have blast craters, then we have actual collapse craters, and then we have spatter cones and other kinds of smaller volcanoes, lava flows, effusive flows. So apparently they get all kinds of eruptions here, not just one kind. Like some volcanoes just do lava flows for the most part, hardly ever do any kind of blasting. So when I see a six there, I just have to tell you, keep an eye on it because what's going on to the north? If we follow the plate boundary up to the north, let's do that, by the way. Let's go back to this earthquake and go open the USGS map now and look at the plate boundary map for the USGS. And we're talking down here in Ethiopia, is where I was just showing you down here at Dauphin. But you'll see the red lines. The red lines are the plate boundaries. And you'll see the red line goes up to the north to Egypt, then cuts up to the north through Israel, and then goes into Turkey, and then makes a W-shaped bend over to the west and goes across Greece and up into Italy with a J-shaped bend in the plate and dead ends up into Turin in Milan where the plate boundary dead ends. Okay, this matters because up to the north, we're getting the same size release that we had down here at Ethiopia starting at Christmas. So back to December, Ethiopia started to break, and we were seeing a whole bunch of 4 and 5.0 level activity that then resulted after that with all the steaming and the fumarolic activity. Well, up to the north, this volcano up to the north has started to show major activity. And look, it's called Fira, Greece. And this is a well-known ancient volcanic location, Santorini volcano, which has put off blasts in like 1950 and then back in the 1800s. Every few decades, it might do something here at this volcano, Santorini. And Santorini, around the outside edges of it, look, the houses are literally right there on the edge of the crater itself. We even have a street level view where we can go in and look into the crater from where the houses are. Look at the houses, first of all. Real nice, right? But there's the center of the volcano. So if this thing blows, we got ourselves a real problem. Look how many people live here now. Okay. Now, what's been going on is up here out in the ocean to the north and northeast, all of this has been having a bunch of seismic activity that started out really far down. It started out like 60 and 70 kilometers down, which is far below the volcano and the magma chamber for the volcano itself. The magma chamber for the volcano is anywhere between 8 and 4 kilometers, but most people say 6. So we'll just say somewhere in the 8 to 6 kilometer depth is where the magma chamber is for Santorini, supposedly. I would also venture a guess that Colombo most likely has the same feeder, and that's in the same magma chamber area, so they're probably about the same, similar, give or take 1 kilometer. So we're talking pretty shallow magma chambers. So when we got a bunch of deep earthquake activity down below it, 60 kilometers, 50 kilometers, something was going on inside the feeder for this whole thing. So not just Santorini, not just Colombo. I mean, we could back it out even. Those are the two that are marked nearby, but these are all ancient volcanoes through here, and there's probably some that are undersea that we don't even have names on. Again, this is what Google's showing us, so it's kind of low resolution seafloor imagery. I would think there's other volcanoes out there. That's what I'm getting at. The seismic is letting us know something's going on there, obviously. And then recently, over the past few days, reports have come out that there were sounds coming out of center of Santorini. They were picking up sounds of some kind. And that was reported by professionals. It was in the news. Silky was talking about it on her channel on the Pulse. Well, Silky was talking about that. And I trust the reports out of there that there was some kind of audio sounds that people were hearing coming from Santorini itself, but no glow, no fire, no eruption, nothing like that, no lava. I would think we're getting to the point where we were down here at Dauphin. Right before Dauphin had all the steaming and the fumarolic activity, the people were reporting hearing sounds of some kind coming from the area, and it was brushed off and dismissed. Now, here is well populated. Again, we're talking about Santorini's populated. Several of the other islands around the area are very well populated. There's thousands of people that live. So if we got a big blast at this thing, it would actually cause a problem. The good news is the past blasts that have happened at Santorini in the near-term past were VEI 0 to VEI 1, which is like 10,000 foot, basically, which is not that big. We've seen bigger. It's not that big of a deal. If it goes really low, low level 0, you would get ash around the area, but it wouldn't blow the houses away or anything. You would just get, again, you'd get something going at the center and a big ash cloud that comes out the center, but everybody around here would still be able to, you know, brush the dust or the volcanic ash off their houses and move on if that was like a VEI 0. If it happens out in the ocean, it could be an effusive lava flow type eruption where there's no blast. If there's a blast out in the ocean, that's a big deal and it'll cause tsunami activity. So it's a big up in the air. I'm not forecasting it. I'm just telling you what's going on. That's what's led us up to this. Now, I'm just looking for a cue as to what's going on overall seismically by what's in the area around the area. And let's go back to the USGS map and go to the plate boundary map. There we go. So I just showed you Ethiopia down here where Dauphin volcano is, and they already had the steaming, they already had the fumarolic, and now a new 6 returns. Up here, I just showed you Santorini. Now what about over here? Let's go over to Iran. So you'll notice all three are connected by the same plate boundary system for the most part. We're coming out of south, down here on this plate boundary. Up here to the north, we're north of Iran. Or I'm sorry, south of Iran, north of Saudi Arabia. But it's all connected. The wave is coming across the plate boundary to the north and to the south, the seismic wave that I'm talking about. Let's go over to Iran and look it up really quick. And we'll pull the coordinates from good old USGS, who apparently are under new management. Department of Interior got their own inspector, from what I just saw online. 19-year-old inspectors, a big something or other is coming over there. Okay, what do we have going on here? We're going into Iran. Now, there are things here nearby. First of all, plate boundary, I already showed it to you on the USGS map right here, down to the south. Part of Iran. There it is, the red line. Well, it's kind of hard to see on this map, but there it is. So down to the south part of Iran is the plate boundary. But are there any other features here nearby that are worth mentioning? Well, over to the east, you'll see we have volcanoes marked all the way down in central Iran, but they don't have any volcanoes marked through here. It's like they stopped through central Iran. Nearest volcanic field is all the way up here at the Bijar volcanic field. Never heard of it before. I need to look at it, see what it even looks like. Oh, looks like they're mining it. Wow. Jeez. What's going on here? Yeah, I'll say. They get gold out of there probably or something. Okay. Well, I would think that there's more to the south that are just not marked. Just a guess. I mean, it's not like volcanoes just stop along plate boundary systems. So this is the plate boundary system. We don't have anything marked for 1,000 miles in each direction, basically. And I just think that's due to lack of reporting or lack of investigation through here from the Smithsonian Institute. Again, if I had the place marks here to prove that there were volcanoes nearby, right? That being said, plate boundary, we would expect this to be tied together. 5, 5, and 5. And that's what's going on. If you guys know of any volcanic features here nearby, please let me know. Again, this place mark system that I have here from the USGS and the Smithsonian is woefully lacking. Someday we might get all the place marks, but that might even shut down the system if there's that many place marks. So you would think there probably are. And I would encourage you guys to also come in and look areas up. You might find stuff. You can find stuff. If you start looking up earthquakes, next thing you know, you'll find stuff like what's this right here? I have no idea what we're looking at, but it's marked and I don't want to click on it. It's going to take me to some kind of site that I probably shouldn't go to. Why'd I get a knock on the door? It's like, what did you click on, Decha? I was just looking up earthquakes, sir. All right, let's recap one more time. Down at Ethiopia, that's the spot where it was steaming. Then we transferred up here to Santorini. It starts to do its volcanic thing. Back over to the east, nothing there place mark wise, but I'm venturing to guess there should be something there marked, and it's all the same sized activity within a hair of a point of each other, and all in the same day's time period, the last 48 hours. What does it mean? It means the whole plate boundary system. Let's go back one more time. From down here at Africa, up here to Santorini, and back here to Iran, all three spots are inundated by a giant seismic wave that's been coming from somewhere else over to the east, coming from the Indo-Australian plate region, especially where the boundaries meet between the Pacific and the Indo-Australian plate. And that's where our seismic waves are ultimately coming from with our origin points for the seismic wave. But we're not here to do a full seismic update. It's just to bring you up to speed on what's going on with the significant earthquakes of the day. We could carry on really quick and just show you the equidistant spacing of fives going across the plate. This is just huge. Just check this out. This is amazing. Well, we'll put 4.9s in there just to really, again, USGS downgrades a lot of earthquakes to be the next magnitude down to 4.9. It's a long story on that, but we'll incorporate in 4.9s. But going from over here to see the spacing, it's almost perfect equidistant spacing from down in the Indian Ocean, across up through Philippines, up through Japan, over to Alaska, and then right here in the middle is there we go, all the way down to the opposite side of the planet, the South Sandwich. It's an equidistant spacing of the same sized earthquakes. For instance, the spacing on these sets of fives. This isn't me cherry picking the quakes. I'm showing you everything 4.9 and greater, right? So there's 4.9 and greater. And all the 4.9s do are fill in the halfway points between the other fives. So it's a perfect spacing spreading out across almost the whole planet. When I say almost, there's one spot missing for this to be a perfect stepping stone path of fives all the way around the entire planet at this point. Now we go to the opposite side of the planet over here and we're getting the same thing, but it's spreading out across those red lines that I just showed you here. So we're spreading out across over to Europe this way, and we're spreading out over to the United States, up and around, and then down the East Pacific, down all the way to the South Sandwich Islands, south of South America. Let's do that one more time and show it to you. You have to be looking for almost a world away to see it, but an equidistant spacing of fives spread out across a huge distance, all the way down and around to the opposite side of the planet. And this is in 6 days' time. What does this prove? It proves that there's an equidistant spacing of the same sized earthquakes across the whole planet in a week. And what causes that? That would be caused by a greater wave that's spreading across these distances, and it's just dropping off the fives along the way as the wave spreads. If you think of these like peaks on a wave, and that wave is spreading through an area over the course of a week, reflecting into itself and filling in the middle points between the previous spots, then you see the 4.9 is literally sandwiched in between the two fives. Another 5, basically. USGS downgraded it to a 4.9, but a 5 pops off in between the other two fives as the wave reflects into itself like a standing wave. But this standing wave is huge, and it's very low frequency or ultra low frequency down in the plate. And instead of being contained in a tank, it's being contained in the plate boundary system, which are these red lines going around the planet. And where's the wave coming from? It's coming up from the core of the Earth, vibrating out like a bass drum. And the core of the Earth is somewhat plasmatic in nature because it's emanating out very low frequency, ultra low frequency, electrical in nature, radio waves, electrical waves, if you want to think of it like that. Electricity, very low frequency, ultra low, coming up from down below and then comes up into the underside of the plate. And then that wave spreads out and it drops off the earthquakes along the way. That's my greatest finding out of all of this. So recapping one more time, Texas was struck down at the pumping operations as the wave is spreading across, going down and reaching as far east as East Texas at the drill points currently. I'll show that all to you here right now. One final point on this, the last 7 days worth of earthquakes in the United States, we're going to turn off all the numbers. We're just going to look at the earthquakes themselves, and we're going to compare to the craton diagram one more time. Last 7 days of earthquakes, going down through Texas and up the East Coast. This is USGS, and here's 0.0 and greater. And we'll turn the numbers back on just so you can see what they are, but the size of the rings indicates the size of the earthquakes. You can see a cluster of them pointing in from the west out on the west coast, and then it focuses down to Colorado, then up to Texas, up into Oklahoma, one lone earthquake at the old oil fields in central Kansas, and then over to the east we go through the New Madrid, up to the east coast we go. And that's following the edge of the craton perfectly. One more time, edge of the craton compared to the earthquakes, it's a perfect match. What does it mean? It means there's a wave going around the edge of the craton. And if we know there's something going around something, then we can watch for it, first of all. And it's not the earthquakes going around the edge of the craton. It's this wave is going around the edge of the craton, and it's just dropping off the earthquakes. The earthquakes are the byproduct of this wave. So it's not one earthquake causing the other. It's that all of these are being caused by a greater force that's going across that has been up till now, as of yet, undiscovered. I call it a quake low frequency of some kind. It's in the plate. It's electrical in nature. It's very low frequency or ultra low. The spacing tells us that. The spacing between waves, between earthquakes, tells us that that's a low frequency wave. So now that you've seen that the earthquakes go down through Texas and up the East Coast every week this way, it happens every week this way for the last 15 years I've been observing it. Now that you know that, if you know where something's coming from, and you know generally where it's going to, and you know how long it takes to get from point A to point B, well, then you can forecast, much like a flood or like a train arrival. Of course, there's outside factors that can play in that can delay the arrival or even mitigate the arrival, stop it, return it. But in many cases, in most cases, the forecasting can be done as if it's flooding or river forecasting, because we are forecasting a river of energy that's going across the planet, and that's what's causing the earthquakes. So we found the force that causes earthquakes. We have yet to name it, but it's certainly a low frequency of some kind. It's electrical in nature because it's coming up from out of the core of the Earth, and it's spreading out around the planet as if it's an actual shock wave of some kind. And it's being contained in these red lines, as if they are a wave tank. And then that gets us into the final point on this, which I would like to, I guess maybe I need to take you over to my X page and show you guys a few things, and also show you a few things over on my YouTube page. So I guess I need to open my YouTube page as well. So over on my YouTube page, I have instructions on how to forecast an earthquake. If you're curious and you want to do it yourself, there's step-by-step instructions on how to do it. But I'd like to draw your attention to this right here, the standing wave video, which is the one that I'm referencing when I'm talking about standing waves. You can also go watch the people whose lives were saved by my forecast in the past when they thanked me publicly on BBC News for saving lives over in Italy, for instance. I got thanked on public news, but not here to pat myself on the back. I want you to watch this one. This one's just right next to it if you want to. But that being said, you guys need to get up to speed on standing waves, because standing waves are what are spreading out and dropping off the earthquakes. And we can forecast We can forecast based upon standing waves alone and forecast arrival times as if we're talking about a flood. So I'll do a new forecast for somebody at some point, but not tonight. When I say somebody, I'm talking about my viewers. And that's another final point I'd like to make on this. Let's go back over to my wonderful X page where I am now approved to have paying subscribers. I know a lot of you don't use X for whatever reason, but I use it to share pictures, links, videos, and other things. Of course, we could use Facebook or some other social media. I use this one because they allow me to talk about things that the other social media, Facebook and the others, don't allow me to talk about. While you may not agree politically with people on X or what they talk about, or maybe even the owner you don't like, they do allow me to talk about weather modification, earthquake forecasting, and other things. And the worst thing that happens is maybe a community note might get put on my page or something. But they allow me to talk about it, whereas the other services will literally remove your posts. So I can talk about earthquake forecasting on X. I can also post other stuff that I'm interested in. And if you guys want to come over and check that kind of stuff out, stuff for my paying subscribers, little added little benefits. And that's just for paying subscribers. You don't have to join, guys. No pressure. I'm just telling you, it's available now if you want to come over and check it out. Dutch Sense merch is also on the menu for this year. Got a little setback with the Letterman's jackets. Some of the patches that we were getting made were apparently coming from Asia or maybe China, and those won't be coming anytime soon. So the Letterman's jackets will be available. Those are U.S. made, but the patches, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out something to do with the patches, get those made, and we'll get those sewed on. So Letterman's jackets are pushed back for a moment, but they're going to be replaced by the Dutch Sense collectible genetics, which are seeds. The seeds that I've been breeding, I'm going to have those available. And that'll be just, I think, for a lot of people are going to be really, really happy to get those. All different kinds, Dutch Sense this and that. We'll have the Dutch Sense seeds will be out for everybody to get their hands on if you want them as collectibles. There'll be an official Dutch Sense packaging that says Dutch Sense Genetics with the strain name and everything else down below that I bred, when I bred it, what part of, what kinds, everything that you guys will love it if you're into that kind of stuff. Collectibles, right? What else are we going to have? I don't know. Duchess is working on artwork, which we will have in a separate section for the Dutch Sense merch that supports our general operations. And that'll be the Duchess's stuff. She's going to be handling that. I don't even know what to expect. All I know is it'll be good. It'll be better than my stuff. So I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, night, whatever. Be safe. I'm going to upload this to YouTube and I'm going to upload it to X. And we will watch it back on both at some point in the near term. Thank you for tuning in. This has just been an update to show you what's been going on. I know there's other earthquakes out here that are on the screen that you might be curious about. Like, for instance, up in Maine, the earthquake up in the East Coast and the Northeast at Maine. I don't want to get into it right now. Since it's such a small earthquake, right now it doesn't matter. But I already went and looked it up earlier. It's right next to a hydroelectric dam and set of power lines. This opens up a can of worms where I'd have to talk for 15 to 20 minutes on very low frequency being generated by power stations and how we see next to hydroelectric dams, gas-fired power plants, nuclear power plants, solar, wind, they all tend to get small little earthquakes next to down maybe a few miles away from the actual power generation station, as this very low frequency that I'm talking about in the plate is matched at some point by the man-made very low frequency in the power lines. And the power lines, in case you don't know, the electricity in your power line is very low frequency, VLF. And Mother Nature has a form down in the plate. And I don't know what precipitates this. It's something I'll have to study in the future. But to explain it all, it requires electron cascade and electromagnetic fields interacting with a scalar, explaining what a scalar is, how two areas can cross, and in the middle you get a scalar. Okay, we just go into long explanations on that kind of stuff. Not going to explain it now on a 2.5, although I am right now explaining it in brief detail. Oh my God, right? You open a can of worms, you start talking about that. But it's next to a hydroelectric dam and a set of power lines. Happens all over the world that way. It's something that future researchers are going to be getting into that. I guarantee you in the next few years, we're going to see doctorate level students that are writing dissertation papers on the small earthquake striking next to power lines and power stations as a byproduct of VLF discharge into the plate. Guaranteed. It'll take them a little while longer to figure out that there's something else down in the plate that's crossing, and that's where you're getting your scalar, and that's where the power is being released. But that's okay. Scalar, that gets into CERN level. You guys want to have fun, go search the scalar Higgs boson experiments where they're crossing two beams in the chamber at CERN and colliding the two microwave beams carrying particles, charged particles. In case you didn't know, CERN is just nothing more than huge banks of klystrons generating microwave beams. And one beam is going one way, one beam is going the other, and they cross the beams, and doped into the beam itself are particles of iron and other things that they collide, and they're able to get a particle of iron generated and shot out of an electron gun and then carried on a microwave through the tubes in CERN contained electromagnetically with giant electromagnets. And then that's guided, and the two beams are collided. They take two particles and they hit them together in the scalar where the beams cross. That's called the scalar Higgs boson, where the beams cross. The area where the beams cross is called a scalar. Well, just an area is called a scalar. An area where anything is happening in between two things is a scalar. Simply put. I know it sounds complex, but when you talk about crossing the beams, everybody understands Ghostbusters. For some reason, everybody understands Egon and Ghostbusters. Maybe I just need to grow my hair out and put on a pair of glasses. Okay. All right. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night. I'm out of here. Signing off. Peace out.